Well, you might have watched him grow up on television. Paul Petersen was the young son on the Donna Reed Show, which aired on television from 1958 to 1966. And in that time, well, he grew up really age 12 to 20. And in fact, if you look on YouTube, there's an interesting array, an interesting combination of the opening theme song scenes over the years of the Donna Reed Show, and you can get a sense there of how Paul grew up playing Jeff Stone on television. He is in West Michigan right now in Kalamazoo at the Great Lakes Nostalgia Convention, which is going on this weekend, and he joins us on the radio this morning. Paul, thank you for the time today.
Oh, thank you, Richard. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our chat.
So talk a little bit about Donna Reed Show for a second. You'd already been an actor, right? But this opportunity came fairly early in your career.
Yes, indeed. My first professional job was as one of the original Mouseketeers. Of course, my main claim to fame back in 1955 was I was the first kid they fired. So starting from that kind of iffy beginning, I started to get work, and the jobs got bigger, and finally I was doing movies like Houseboat with Cary Grant and Sophia Loren, and that led directly in 1958 to the Donna Reed Show. And as my friend Tony Dow says, you say yes to a potential series, not realizing that, poof, there goes your life. Because I was there from age 12 to 20, and as you just referred, people can actually watch me grow from 4'6" to 6 foot tall.
And Tony Dow knows a little something about the story you're telling as well.
Oh, does he ever? It is often a topic of conversation because, Richard, it's such an unusual way to grow up. Now, don't get me wrong. It's fun to be rich and famous, believe me. But it's like having a great dinner. Eventually, somebody hands you a bill. And if you've had good parents and good guidance, you're able to pay that bill. But if you are bereft of any kind of solid guidance, mentorship, if you will, you can be at serious risk.
So what happened after Donna Reed?
Well, Richard, it's a straightforward tale of a descent into hell. The year after the Donna Reed Show, I worked 16 weeks, then 8 weeks, then 4 weeks, then not at all. Because, simply put, Hollywood was done with me. And Mickey Rooney came to my house, uninvited, unannounced. He just showed up at my door and sat me down on my own couch and said, you got to get out of town, get your education, because they won't let you work for 30 years. Wow. And I said, why are you telling me this? And he looked me right in the eye and said, because it happened to me.
He would know.
The stories about kid stars have been going on since the 19-teens. And there is a pattern to it. There are predictable occurrences that, frankly, a set of good parents can help guard against. But if you're all alone out there and being famous, sometimes you think you are, you're going to face challenges that you are not built to cope with.
What was family life like for you then at that point?
Well, family between the ages of 12 and 20 was stage one at Columbia Pictures. That's where the Donna Reed Show was filmed. I called Donna Reed Mom. In the course of any working day. She was, of course, always Miss Reed in public, but I had a family. Plus, I had a family at home composed of a divorcing mom and dad and a baby sister and another sister. So it was very complex, and this won't surprise you because of the importance of the Donna Reed Show and the income. The person with the gold was me. I kind of ran, my schedule determined what happened in my family.
Yeah. And you were the breadwinner, probably.
Well, absolutely, and by miles. I mean, this is 3 working people in our family home, Dad, Mom, and Grandpa Burr, and I out-earned all of them by a factor of 5 and 10.
Oh, my. Wow, and an incredible accomplishment for someone who is so young.
Well, it was. Now, I can't say that I was the author of my fate. For example, when we moved into the singing part of my career in Shelley Fabre, that was dictated by the owners of Columbia Pictures and Donna Reed's husband, who was the producer of the show. And the reason we recorded Richard was straightforward. Ricky Nelson was a huge success on our lead-in show, Ozzie and Harriet.
Right.
So, of course, we recorded.
We're talking with Paul Petersen, who is in Kalamazoo right now, appearing at the Great Lakes Nostalgia Convention with Kathy Garver, mind you, from A Family Affair. And in a moment, we'll come back and talk about how this experience Paul had, both with the Donna Reed Show and after it, inspired him into action. And we'll talk about that coming up on WBCK. Richard Piet Show. We're talking today with Paul Petersen, whom you may remember as Jeff Stone, the young son of Donna Reed on the Donna Reed Show. And you don't have to be of a certain age to remember because, of course, the show aired 58 to 66, but, of course, you may become acquainted with it in rebroadcasts in subsequent years. The thing is, we've heard the tale before, a child star just too much too soon, and that was the case for Paul. But he used that to move forward with an organization called A Minor Consideration, kind of a play on words there, I suppose. And
yes, indeed.
Yeah. And so what did you do that motivated you here, and what do you do today with it, Paul?
Well, look, my troubles, which I thought were unique, as I grew older and pursued my writing career when I lived in Connecticut, I began to understand were similar to the stories of not only my predecessors, but my contemporaries. Because understand, Richard, it's a small community of professional working kids, and we all knew each other, and we knew each other's parents, and we watched careers, and it wasn't because we were so fascinated by it, but you couldn't avoid it. And I knew so many horror stories that at first I thought, well, that they can't be the same as me. And then at the end of the day, when I wrote Walt, Mickey, and Me, this is back in 1977, I realized that these common paths were consistent through time, and nobody was trying to fix it.
Now you are.
Well, yes, I have that honor because I got a big tap on my shoulder from a higher power that said, "This is your job, Paul."
Wow.
When my friend Rusty Hamer, who was 12 years on the Danny Thomas Show, killed himself in January of 1990, I said to my wife, "That will never happen again. If there's a kid actor in trouble somewhere, I'm going to show up." And I'm knocking on wood as I speak to you, Richard. We have kept that pledge. These troubles are often so public that you wonder, why doesn't somebody do something? And when you try to do something, what I discovered after Rusty's death is that people wanted to help, especially when they found out that children in the entertainment business, you won't believe this, are exempt from federal child labor laws.
How could that be?
Well, how indeed? Back in 1938, when they passed the Fair Labor Standards Act that most every employee works under, specific exemptions were granted. Kids in show business, kids in agriculture, kids who deliver newspapers and subscription magazines. There's a whole list, 43, I think, in all, that have been exempted. Now, what that means in real terms is that if you work in California where there are extensive child labor laws for entertainment, you're fine, because we do a pretty good job out here after we amended the laws.
Right.
But what happens if you're working in North Carolina, where they actually brag about the lack of child labor laws? North Carolina, for example, is where Drew Barrymore did the movie Firestarter, and in her book admits that she started her addictive behaviors at age 9.
Wow. These are incredible stories. So did you decide to do for others what Mickey Rooney did for you, and go show up at their house? How do you do it?
Well, in fact, we do. Our interventions are pretty blunt, generally with 3 or more famous kid stars all together, and we do go knock on doors. And we are told about these troubles sometimes by adult co-stars, sometimes by worried parents who have lost track of their kid, sometimes even, you won't believe this, Richard, by the drug dealer who say, hey, I got a kid here who's buying way too much stuff. You got to help him because he's going to get me in trouble.
Wow.
And so we have an active outreach program. And the nice thing, since we've been around now for so long, people know who to call. Now they know who to call.
Well, that means you've done your work quite well.
Well, I think so, but this isn't just me. You know, when my wife and I started this in January of 1990, and almost immediately, other former kid stars began to come to us with offers of help. Some of them were perfectly fine in their life, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, but some were themselves broken and needed the support of it was like a support group.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get together, it's the darndest thing. I don't know if you remember the special that Melissa Gilbert and Tony Dow did called Child Stars, Their Story.
Yeah.
There is a segment in that documentary where a bunch of former kid stars are sitting around a table. And that is exactly what happens when our group gets together.
Well, I suppose even as adults, they went through some of these challenges without having dealt with it at all, even into adulthood.
Well, absolutely, and that's part of the problem. You see, you're living your life upside down. It's not natural in an ordinary life to have your impact and influence diminish as you get older. Mm-hmm. And yet that's what happens to so many young celebrities.
Wow. We're talking with Paul Petersen. You knew him from the Donna Reed Show, grew up on television and in the movies for that matter, and has made a life out of helping other young child stars navigate that very difficult path. He's in Kalamazoo this week, Great Lakes Nostalgia Convention. You can see him there. In the meanwhile, we'll take this break and come right back. Richard Piet Show, WBCK. We're talking with Paul Petersen, whom you watched grow up on the Donna Reed Show in the late 50s and early 60s, and has made a career out of helping child stars who very quickly can get sucked into the whirlpool of Hollywood and becoming stars and dealing with that aftermath. And in fact, he's created an organization some time ago now called A Minor Consideration, where he actually helps child stars navigate the path that he himself has navigated. He's at the Great Lakes Nostalgia Convention, by the way, at the Radisson Hotel in downtown Kalamazoo this week, and we'll be giving you some details on that here in just a second. Paul, has it become harder to help child actors with modern challenges, or is it the same kind of degree of difficulty?
Well, it's the same. It's a distinction without a difference because of social media. Mm-hmm. That throws an entirely different urgency to the problems that so many young celebrities face. But the truth is, the core constituents of young performers remain the same. What are your parents like, if you even have a set of parents? What is the nature of your fame? And critically, at what point in your life does the career come to a screeching halt? And once you identify those factors, you can make predictions and take aggressive steps to sort of change the course of the river, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And so even today now, you're getting, as you indicated, notices from adults or others who say, this actor, that actor, this child needs your help, and you hop right to it.
Absolutely, we do. Well, I'll give you a fine example. John and Kate +8.
Oh, my.
Here they were filming this family in Pennsylvania, which had child labor laws on the books, but no one in state government took the time to go investigate the working circumstances of those 8 children. And it was the #1 show on cable television.
Wow.
Which, oh, by the way, Richard, made a profit of $200 million for the Discovery Group. And guess what they paid the kids? Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing.
And these child labor laws are governed by the states. Is that true? And in your point, California's are different than North Carolina or Pennsylvania or Michigan, for that matter.
Exactly. And that's why I showed up in Pennsylvania, along with Allison Arngrim, who was Nellie on Little House, and John Provost from Lassie, to fix the problem in Pennsylvania, so they would address this issue.
Well,
and there's shows all over the air that we see, whether it's Honey Boo Boo or Dance Moms or Toddlers and Tiaras, that are exploiting children in the most grievous way. And we've got to fix this. We got to make sure that the rules for children are just as strong and just as enforced as they are for animals.
Oh, wow. Are lawmakers, when you go to these states, generally receptive to your message?
Almost always, because they're shocked. They thought this problem was long ago taken care of. They don't know about the exemptions to federal child labor laws. They don't know that there are more extensive regulations for animals than for children. And mind you, these are children who are taxpayers. They can't vote, of course, but they're taxpayers. They are supposed to have the protection of the state. And lawmakers are shocked that in their own backyard, these production companies, which now cover the planet, are not conforming to standards and practices.
Boy, we could talk for hours about this, I suspect, but I want to give you a chance to talk about what it's like to be part of a convention like the Great Lakes Nostalgia Convention, which is going on now at the Radisson Plaza Hotel in Kalamazoo.
Well,
who do you see there, and what happens?
I can't tell you how much I enjoy these because, I'm 70 years old, and I get to talk to people as the person I am, a grandpa and a dad and a person who has benefited from their affection and respect all these years. And we get to talk about things like hot rods and radio shows and how are your kids doing and what challenges are you facing in your own life. And it's like having a huge family.
They know you when they walk up to you.
Well, in fact, they do. I came into people's living room every Thursday night for 8 years.
Wow. So what's on the horizon for you? More with a minor consideration, maybe more writing? We didn't even talk about the books you've written, but what's next?
Well, I think I will always continue the writing. That's part of my life. But I am actually in a transition time where younger former kid stars, and I'm talking 30 years and more younger than I, are gradually taking over the day-to-day nuts and bolts operation of a minor consideration. Because, Richard, it is difficult to get to prisons for visits or hospitals or to sit down and counsel people. I've been doing it for so long. I'm getting worn out. That's just the truth. But this new group of kids, led by Scotty Schwartz from The Toy and Christmas Story and others, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, who are some of the others that are helping, if you don't mind name-dropping a bit?
Name-dropping, that's what we are. Aaron Murphy from Bewitched. Let's see. Allison Arngrim, I mentioned her name before, from Little House on the Prairie, who's had a really extraordinary career. Stephen Wishnoff. We've got a bunch of people. I wish I could name them all. It's kind of like it's a who's who of kid actors.
Well, that's encouraging to know that they're all behind you, and why wouldn't they be, of course?
Well, I think at the end of the day, and I've done a lot of extraordinary things in my life, at the end of the day, what I'm most proud of is the establishment and growth of a minor consideration. And the idea that I can leave this behind is so satisfying. It's hard to express how proud I am of the group.
Well, and that's understandable. It's been a terrific opportunity to chat with you. And Paul Petersen is right now at the Great Lakes Nostalgia Convention in Kalamazoo at the Radisson Plaza Hotel, and you can see him there as well. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.